Welcome to The Real Dope, a podcast for anyone walking alongside someone battling addiction, based on the powerful book, The Real Dope on Dealing with an Addict, by sisters Elizabeth Brand and Meridith Elliott Powell. Each episode will explore practical strategies, share authentic stories, and provide the honest guidance. Let's begin today's journey and turn survival into strength.
Hi, this is Meredith Elliott Powell, and you know what time it is. It is 11 a.m. Eastern on a Thursday morning, and it's one of my favorite times of the week. It is time for The Real Dope, the show where we dive into what you need to know to understand when you love, support, and quite frankly, just have to deal with an addict. I'm hanging out here with my sister, Beth Brand, who you know, and we've got a very special guest today. Now, I always like to remind you, we are not therapists, we are not doctors. We are just two people that have lived the life that many of you are living and wanted to provide a show that is not for the addict. It's for those of us who love and support and have to deal with an addict. Again, we've got a really special show for you today. So hold on, and we're going to dive into everything that you need to know to really deal with the challenges in your life that addiction brings. I am really excited about this. We have Shirley Wantland, the CEO of Recovery Consultants, which provides bespoke recovery support to individuals and families struggling with addiction, mental, and behavioral health issues, which I think just all go together. Now, the great thing is that Shirley has been described by friends as a scientist and a truck driver trapped inside the body of a princess. She does not fit into a box. Now, I was introduced to Shirley by a friend of mine who saw that my sister and I were doing this podcast. She had actually seen the book and said, the two of you need to meet. We had a conversation, Shirley, and it was just, I got to tell you on my part, love at first sight. So,
Yeah.
welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Meredith and Beth. So lovely to be here. Sandwiched between two sisters.
That's right. All right, Beth, kick us off.
I guess I'm kinda interested in how you got involved in the recovery field to begin with.
Absolutely. I'm one of those rare birds where I'm in this industry, but I'm not in recovery myself. I had a lot of addiction within my family and a lot of mental health in my family. And I think being the oldest daughter of two immigrants, I was tasked with figuring it out. And so I had a cousin who was in deep in his addiction. My family's from Vietnam originally, and really just ran our family, his family, to the ground with his addiction. Parents were very successful that ended up selling their home to continue to feed this addiction. And so I've experienced it firsthand. And I think there's a part of me that I'm like, there's got to be another way. And that my own family's journey just kind of allowed me, I don't know, there's always been something inside of me. I've always been a weird child who's always been obsessed with addiction. Even though I didn't do drugs, I was so obsessed with the lives of people who were just destroyed by addiction, impacted by addiction. I used to watch that show Intervention when I was a kid. I'm like, "What are you watching that?" I was like fascinated. So there's a calling, I should say. And when I went into this field 13 years ago, my friends and family were like, "Duh, of course, it makes so much sense."
Well, it is interesting because there aren't any answers yet, really, and it's so messy, and it's
Yeah,
so individual. And no,
yeah,
it's fascinating why somebody would drink themselves to death or drug themselves. Like, why? What's pushing that? And we don't know. So
yeah.
tell me a little bit about recovery consultants exactly. Like, what is your way to approach someone who approaches you? Is it
Mhm.
normally the family who approaches you? And then what kind of programming do you offer?
Absolutely. So yeah, I would say 80% of the time it's a family or loved one that approaches us about someone that they're concerned about. And we, so Recovery Consultants provides very bespoke, customized plans. So whether it's they need to go away to some sort of residential program or some more structured, we navigate that with them. If they're like, oh, I've already done that 13 times. I don't know if that's gonna work, or I'm too scared. I'm not gonna leave my home and go to some weird place. I just can't do it. we will often customize teams to deliver services in their home. I think that's one of the things that makes recovery consultants different is we work with clients and their families in the home environment, which is where all the patterns and the triggers and all the things happen because we help people kind of it's like getting support and treatment and doing life at the same time because life is going to tell
Uh-huh.
you you need
Uh-huh.
support. And I think this whole paradigm sometimes of taking people away and putting them in treatment, although it certainly serves a purpose, it's not the end all be all. Um, One of my friends and colleagues kind of described it as sometimes when they're going to treatment, it's like learning to swim with a swim instructor in the kiddie pool. And then you go back home and you swim in the ocean alone. And that's so often what happens where people go home that, oh my gosh, I don't have the tools to deal with this because they haven't been in that environment. And so it's kind of taking that next step approach of being really in there with the clients and families we work.
Yeah, I read an Eckhart Tolle book, The Power of Now. I'll never forget the end of the book. It was he'd given us all these tools and resources, and he said, "Now go home to Thanksgiving dinner and watch yourself boomerang back." It
It's true.
Here you are as a kid, and you're fascinated by addiction, and eventually you decide to work in the addiction field. Did you try other models before finding, this one? Like, what was your journey through the world of really
Sure.
worked in addiction?
Yeah. So it say it's serendipitous, but it finds you, right? The calling. I was in pharmaceutical sales. I was like in my career, didn't even think about this. And a recruiter had called and remembered, she said, "Oh, I've got this job at this company. They have like 150 different rehab centers. They're looking for a business development person. Would you want to do this?" And I was like, what is she talking about? I didn't even know this whole industry existed. Did some quick Googling and I lovingly say, it's like, I think I'm the right kind of crazy who would like really love this.
Mhm.
And so I was there for 2 years and I just saw the burn and churn of
Yeah.
people coming in and out of treatment, in and out of treatment. And I think although there are a lot of people that work in those treatment centers that want the best, I don't think that the way that they're delivering services or how it's fundamentally structured is really for the benefit of the individual. It's just misaligned. I could see you know, that they run a business and they need people there. And the only way people are there is if they're not functioning in their life. And so there's something that it just felt like herding cattle in for 30, 28 days, and then cattle came out and then more cattle. And I'm like, these people need a lot of help in this transition. And that's where kind of recovery consultants was born. It was from that. In that other role, I was talking to a lot of therapists and psychiatrists who saw clients and patients, and they always say, gosh, when they either go to treatment, they go into some sort of black hole and we don't see them, we don't hear from them for a while, or when they come back, we wish there were more people and professionals that could really help guide them and their families. And that was kind of when the idea started to spark. And I was like, maybe there's something more to this. So I've just kind of seen it that way. And I'm like, oh, there's got to be something more. So that kind of has started my quest into looking into other more effective options and ways to go about it.
Because when the person who, is in recovery comes back into the home, the family, if my and we have pretty extensive experience with these recovery programs because we did it from probably 1985 to
Mm.
around 2005 over 5 different addictions in our family, and
Yeah.
the family just isn't prepared. They've gotten better where they have family programs, but in no way did they prepare you because you think and we also know from speaking at these recovery things, people think their loved one is gonna be all better,
Yes.
and that there's nothing wrong with them.
Totally. We put so much eggs in those baskets because it's like our hope to like keep going, right? It's like, oh, like these 30 days, we put a lot of money in and they're there. Like, this is gonna be it. Like, this is gonna cure them. And it's just I think it's a step in the right direction,
Mhm.
but that's not the end all be all because you can't undo 30, 40, 50 years of patterns in 30 days. That's just unrealistic. And I think the more that people understand that, I think the more that they set themselves up to get the right support and to approach things where it's more helpful and effective. Because if we put all those baskets like, "Oh, they should be cured now," and they come
Mhm.
back, they're not, and we're like, "Ooh,
And
no."
it's so much more than a physical addiction.
Totally, totally. There's so much going on there. I always say it's like, people always like, "Get the fish clean," the fish is sick, and you take the fish out of the fish bowl, you clean the fish, but if the fish bowl isn't clean, you put the fish back in, the fish is gonna
Yeah.
get sick again, right? And not to say that, the family is sick, but they're
They
part of it.
are.
They just don't see it, you know?
We would say the family's sick.
Yeah,
The,
yeah,
in fact, it leads me to a sensitive subject that I really want to discuss. That it was one you and I had when we were on the phone, but it's this coming to the realization that you, as a loved one of an addict, you are vested on some level in them staying addicted. That may be too strong a way to say it, but you have made the addiction work in your life, and I'll use it as myself as an example. I mean, my addiction is work. I work way too much.
mhm,
I always have, and
yeah,
my husband was drunk, I could go back to work, so his addiction served me, and that was
yes.
a hard realization to see that I had a stake in it. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that because what this show is really about is about the enabler and understanding what in the heck you are doing in this
Yeah.
situation. Yeah, so
Thank you for bringing that up, Meredith. We see that so often with families. Like I said, 80% of the time it's families coming to us.
yes.
And they're affluent families, that services are concierge. And so they've been through the ringer. And there's this, oh, we everything we've tried has never worked. Everything we've tried, and that's usually a flag I'm like, "Ooh, okay, that's the first thing, like, let's take a look at this." But you see it in not what we say, because I believe consciously there's only 5% of us that our mind that it's doing this right now. 95% is subconscious, and that's the limiting beliefs, it's the wounds, it's the trauma, all of that gets stored there. So we don't want what we say we want. 5% of us does, but 95% of us really wants things to stay the same. And we really see it with the families we work with. Oh, well, they're never gonna get better. They're hopeless. Their mental health, their addiction is so bad. No one can help them. Which I'm always like, well, then why are we talking? And why are we working together? If you don't believe fundamentally that they can change or have a better life, what is the point of all of this, right? You should just throw your hands up and say, "I'm not gonna spend any more money." But we see that so often with families when in the beginning they're, "Oh my god, there's so much crying. Oh my gosh, please help us." And then we come in and we start to help and things start to shift. And it's very interesting. We see a very different change in those family members that are very committed to that person staying sick. All of a sudden, we become the bad guy. They become very adversarial. They become very critical. Well, this didn't work and this didn't work. And it's like, it's, and they don't know it. They don't know that they're consciously doing it, but they're sabotaging things to go back to the status quo of chaos and crisis and being needed. I think so often that's what we see with a lot of parents is their child or their adult child who struggled with addiction has had problems for a long time, whether it's, their mental health or behavioral issues in school or ADHD or whatever that is. They've been very involved for a very long time. And now all of a sudden, the idea of Johnny being on his own and not needing them it's terrifying because they don't know who they are without that. They don't feel needed, they don't feel loved, they don't have a purpose, they don't have an identity, and so that's the deeper work with families, and it's really hard for them to come to terms with that because they also get a lot of love and sympathy from people. "Oh my god,
Yes.
you're I'm so sorry, your son. Oh my god, your poor family. Look at you, you're doing everything." And so that kind of feeds that in a weird way, they get a lot of love and sympathy and compassion. And so it's like they don't almost it's hard to give that up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Meredith and I both say we had a nickel for every time someone called us an angel. "You're such an angel." Like, I by the end, I just didn't wanna be an angel anymore. I just said, "Don't make me an angel. Just make it my life boring, please."
Definitely that was, our mother. I mean, she was
Mhm,
definitely addicted. I mean, I think she was addicted to the chaos and of the addiction and then being needed. One of my favorite memories of her makes me laugh is that I was 21 years old, I was home from college, and I had a cold, no more than I did not have the flu, I had a cold, and I heard her on the phone saying she couldn't come to play golf that day because Meredith was home and she had a cold, and I was 21 years old, I mean, like, she
Yeah.
needed to be needed. So, I'm so curious, do most family members in that work, can they go that far on the journey?
Some of them can, some of them can't.
Yeah,
What we aim to provide, I always say, our healing is directly proportional to how much truth we can handle about
mhm.
ourselves. That's it.
That's
that's
really good.
right.
It
Yeah.
Yeah,
really is.
yeah,
And so I
and that's,
see
like, for
our
everything.
for everything,
Mm,
right? And so I see our role is how do we identify the blind spots? Because they don't see it, right? It's not like they're walking around like, hey, I'm going to sabotage everything. And because I love crisis, like they're not going about the world like that. They're just really hidden in their blind spot. And so what we do is we lovingly bring it up and reflect and then they can choose, right? Once there's truth on the table, then they're empowered to now make a choice. Now it's no more confusion. Oh my gosh, I don't know why this keeps happening. I don't. Now you know, and now you can say, "Hey, I can see I'm not ready to let go of being needed. I really like being in this role. I'm not there yet. So I see what I'm choosing and I know this path creates a lot of chaos, but this is what I'm choosing. Or, hey, I'm ready to shift out of this. What but at least now things are in the open, right? They're not in some closet buried away and we're all pretending we don't
Yeah.
know it's
and you know what? That lifts some blame and shame off the person that has the addiction.
really totally. And I think it's really hard because in looking at truth, we can be empowered to take responsibility, but a lot of people conflate or confuse responsibility with blame. There's
Mhm.
this, oh, then that means I'm a bad parent. Oh, well, how can I can be contributing to this? Oh my gosh. They want it to be some other mystery thing that's like contributing. And it's like, wait, me? No, no, no.
I'm the good one.
Yeah, look at all the effort, I'm trying so hard. And I think it's just really hard for people to see it. And so to answer your question, Meredith, some families are able to see it and work through it. And then some families are so committed in staying in that stuck, chaotic, confused place that even when we reflect to them, they don't wanna, it's not true. No, no, you don't get it, and that's when the you don't get it kind of comes out. And it's like, everyone's on their journey and their path. Our job is to illuminate, and then they can choose what they do from there.
Speaking of illuminate, I'd like you to talk a little bit about harm reduction
Mhm.
and how that is being, 'cause it's a new tack that a lot of people just are like, "No, you have to give up everything," and da da da, but to speak of into harm reduction, how that goes with the person who's being treated, as well as how do families accept that as a, tactic to manage the addiction?
Absolutely. I think that's also one of the things that makes us different is that we do work with harm reduction. Most other programs want, you come in and there's abstinence, no
Mhm,
more mind altering substance for the rest of your life. You declare from now on. And I think for a lot of people, that's really scary when they've already been living in a lot of shame and they're like, oh, maybe I'm ready to give up. I can see the fentanyl or heroin is really wrecking my life, but the cannabis really helps me. And so to me, I'm like, do I want to stand on moral ground and philosophical ground and say, no, if you don't do that, I'm not going to work with you? Or do I see a person in front of me who's willing to try something and to move in the right direction? And then I'm just going to shame them and say, well, you know what? You're not doing it right. So I'm to me, I'm like, if they're willing, let's find the way. And so we work with people and I don't know. For some people, harm reduction does not work, right? And then for some people it does. I'm all about let's look at the data. I'm not one to tell you, yes, no, you need to do. Who am I? I don't know. I like to work with the philosophy. I try to really help people take away good, bad, right, or wrong because there's so much judgment. I always say it either is working for you or it isn't. It's a line or it's not. And so if it's working for you, great.
Uh-huh.
If it's not working for you, now we know and you can choose. So I had a client who came who was really struggling with his cocaine use. He said, he was commercial real estate guy, super successful. He's like, I can see it's out of hand, but you are not going to tell me I'm going to stop drinking. That's where like my livelihood is. That's where deals get made. That's where I meet clients. And I was like, okay. And he was like, well, you can't tell me what to do. I was like, "Well, I already said okay." I was like, why are you fighting me? And it was during the course of us working together that in 8 months, he was 5150, which is in California, put on a psychiatric hold 3 different times
Oh.
for drinking. And I said, okay, so here's the deal. I was like, normal people don't get put on psychiatric holds when they drink. So I don't think this is working for you.
Right.
But now it's your choice. Like, do you want to continue going down this path and then, telling clients and making up excuses why you can't meet with them because, you're in a psychiatric ward, or you want to do something about it? And there was a Cliff's notes, fast forward, and now he's 4 years sober, completely abstinent, and he's engaged and living his life. But at that moment, if I would have told him, no, you
Uh-huh.
need everything, I would have lost him. I would have lost that opportunity. And then there are other people who they're totally fine on cannabis. Their life's not
Mhm.
blowing up. And so we really work with the data. We don't come from a philosophical place. It's, again, let's look and see it either is working for you or it's not. Sometimes I try to tell you it's working when it's not, and that's our job. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
"Ah, it's not working for you. So yeah, to answer your question, Beth, that's how we go about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting because I do think that the one size fits all is a lot of where recovery programs fail.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
because
there's always so much shame already
uh-huh.
that
Yeah.
the person struggling with addiction feels, and then they like muster up the courage and be like, okay, I'm like kind of ready to do something about it. And it's like, no, the way that you want to do it isn't right. It's just like it's so deflating. And it's like, well, if that way isn't right, well, now I don't know what to do, but I do know how to use and drink, so I'll just go back to that, right? I do that really well, so let me go back there. And so we miss those opportunities, and I'd rather keep someone alive and keep continuing the conversation with them rather than some moral high ground and then they're dead. Um, People, if we can move the harm to less, we're moving in the right direction is the way
Yeah.
that I see it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting about that, so I know one of the first times my husband went for help, they wouldn't talk to him because he hadn't quit drinking. And I remember thinking at the time, and I think about that, I think of every bad habit I've ever shed, I've done it through progress. I've never ever done it cold, ever done it cold.
completely.
And I would have relapses now and then. And
Yeah.
those things aren't, they're not really allowed in the addiction world. And I always thought it's why I walk into Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and they're full of cigarettes and they're full of donuts because you never really got to the root of like
Yeah.
drinking just happens to be the outlet or drugs just happen to be the
Totally.
outlet, my opinion, for whatever it is that you're masking. And if you switch it over to donuts and cigarettes, I don't really know that you've dealt with what you
Oh
needed to
my
deal with.
gosh, you're preaching to the choir here,
Yeah.
Meredith. What I see all the time is addiction is really just a coping mechanism,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
right? So it's not a great one, but it worked until it didn't work for a lot of people. I think there should be more emphasis on what are you coping from? And
Right.
that's usually not addressed. It's just, let's change the behavior and just take that away. And then now we'll just slap a bunch of days and months and years on you. And now you're good. But this is why people continue to relapse, right? Like you're saying, it goes into sex addiction or gambling or working out or whatever that is, plastic surgery. It channels into like some other form because that
Right.
root thing hasn't been addressed. That root trauma, that feeling of insecurity, that feeling of not enough eventually, sooner or later, it knocks on your door again. And so I'm with you. I think I wish more people saw it that way. Because that's harder though. It's a lot
Yeah.
easier to look at
Yes.
behavior and count days and months and years and say, oh, you get a gold star.
Mhm.
And really looking at, okay, like let's let's untangle this web. Let's start to pull on, let's go down these rabbit holes. And I think that's the work that a lot of people, it's really hard. And
Yeah.
a lot of professionals and the people experiencing addiction themselves don't want to go down, you know?
Mhm. We're
And
we're back to truth, right?
yes, exactly. Back
Mhm.
to truth. And yeah, it's what I see missing so often in the addiction industry is it's so outside in. If everything on the outside looks good, good enough, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I see people too often with a lot of years under their belt, but then all of a sudden they're dying from an overdose. Is that
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
really like were they really healed? Or and then they'll go into and say, and this is just my own belief that it's a disease. I don't think that it's a disease. I think that the root thing has not been dealt with. And so it just perpetuates. People are able to come out of addiction, right?
Mhm.
Like there
Mhm.
are people who live whole, recovered lives. And to say that it's this debilitating all the time for the rest of your life, it is, but only because I really believe the root trauma and insecurities and things have not been dealt with, and I think that's why people look at it from that model.
Are there other people like you? Not exactly like you, not a truck driving
Not a truck
princess,
driving princess.
but, in the country, is this catching on? People taking another look at maybe how to approach recovery?
There are other people out there that look at this from a very holistic view of kinda getting to the root and the bottom of things, but I would say, unfortunately, predominantly AA and 12 steps has such a hold on the addiction industry. They're kind of like synonymous. It's like one and the same.
Mhm.
That philosophy really takes hold and is still the majority of how addiction is dealt with these days on a large scale. So, yes, there are other people like me. We need more and we need to adopt this thinking more. Unfortunately, I think there are really great things about AA and 12 step, and then there
Mhm.
that are very limiting about it too. And this is one of those things where I see very limiting. There's an opportunity to help more people and look at things from harm reduction or very holistic way. But it would take a real disruptive shift in order to see that. And I think we're getting there. We're moving there slowly. There are more and more people seeing, hey, the way that we're doing it isn't working. But I would still say it's the minority.
We like AA and Al-Anon, we look at it like a first step because it's
Sure.
free and it is and
Absolutely.
you can go there and just like when you just need to feel something out, but we both also believe in like well, because we did like therapy and other steps, and we've seen people get addicted to Al-Anon and
Yes,
AA,
absolutely.
trading
It's
one
just
addiction
trading
for
out one
another.
thing for the other.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
someone who wanted to come work for me, and he had 35 years sober. I said, "Oh my god, that's
Yeah.
amazing." He said, "I still go to 8 AA meetings a day."
Wow.
Oh
And I
my
was,
gosh.
"Well, when would you work for me then?"
Yeah.
That was my first I was like, "When?" And to me, it's like, again, he's got 35 years, which on paper, that's amazing. But what is the quality of life, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you move beyond that?
He has an
You can
internal life.
integrate yeah, you can integrate AA and the
Mhm.
things that you're getting in Al-Anon, but how do you move like, integrate those pieces in and, like, move beyond that, right? And not just stay stuck there. Because I think some people go from the streets or whatever from using, and then they just park it in AA, and then they just live the rest of their
Yeah, it's
lives
like he
there.
still needs that outside authority to manage his life. He's still looking to AA to keep him sober instead of integrating inside so that he's self-driven to that
Exact
sobriety. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I think that the most lost and most lonely and most sad and most angry I ever was in my life is when my husband was in the throes of addiction and I was in the throes of enabling. So, for somebody listening right now, who feels that way, who feels lost, who feels alone, who feels hopeless, where would you suggest they start? And what I mean by that is the baby step, because we've talked a lot about the fact that you make up all these crazy excuses why you can't change your life. I
Mhm.
can't afford to live on my own. I can't, what would happen to the kids? Other people would know. I mean, you come up with all these crazy things. What are easy, simple, not easy, steps
Mhm.
for people to start to try to see their role in what is happening, and to work on themselves rather than their loved one necessarily?
Yeah, it's a multi-step process, but I would say for people who are contemplating or feeling stuck, I think maybe the first just helpful thing for them to do, and again, it's simple, it's just to make a list. What is the life that you're living currently? What is this
Ah,
relationship? What is it costing you? Right? And then what are the payoffs? What do you get from that? And I think people are quick to list the costs. Oh my God, I'm stressed. Oh my, but it's harder to come up to the payoff list because that's what we're talking about. You've got to come up with your own responsibility, your own part. What do you get out of this? And sometimes I think people have to dig really deep to get there. But I think that just putting it on paper objectifies what lives in here and all the thoughts and all just on paper for you to see. And if you see, oof, look at all the costs and oof, I'm getting a little bit of payoff here too. Are you willing to let go and give up those payoffs to get rid of these costs? That's the first question. And if you're not there, then it doesn't really matter what you do. You're going to go back to this
uh-huh.
wanting to enable, wanting to help, wanting to fix, wanting to manage, wanting to be needed sort of situation. There's got to be a point where you're like, you know what, I'm ready. I'm done. I see what it's costing me. I want a different life. I'm done. And unfortunately, like until the family members get to that place, you just don't.
Uh-huh.
It's
Yeah, you don't.
comfortable, right?
Yeah,
Because
you don't.
a lot of family members who are listening and who are enabling of some sort, they're very high functioning. They have a large capacity to take on and do a lot and hold a lot. And so for them, it almost feels second nature in some ways. So it has to like really, really kind of amp up for them to see, okay, I'm done. I'm really done at this point. And so I think for those people who are listening, who you feel like, oh man, I do a lot and my loved one does very little, I think there's an opportunity to look there because there's got to be balance, right? And if you're doing 100 and the other person's doing zero, where's the balance?
I really wanna draw attention to the fact that you make that list, and maybe the first time you make the list, you're not there. I think that's perfectly fine. Like, it was perfectly normal for me to have the bail bondsman on speed dial, to bail my husband out of jail at 2 AM, and be late leading the Chamber of Commerce board of directors meeting at 8 AM. Like, that was normal to me.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
it it took me a while to go, oh, okay, I really wasn't raised to have the bail bondsman on speed dial. Maybe this isn't what I want." But the first time I made that list, I wasn't there. I was not ready for that, and I think that's even just making the list is the right step, right?
Yes, yes. Just start somewhere. And like this isn't just, oh, I have this aha moment and now I'm just ready to give up everything and be a totally different person. That's also unrealistic. It comes in stages, but it's like, what's the first step that you're willing to do for yourself? And maybe it's make a list and just put it out there. And maybe you're not quite ready to do something yet, but you're getting it out of this mind that's cluttered and junky and full of other stuff and just writing it on paper and for some people seeing it, it's like, "Ooh, maybe it's not, right? Maybe you're not ready yet." But that's okay. Like, you can come back to it, and there might be some other time where, like you're saying, Meredith, it's like, "Ooh, Bale's blonde on speed dial." Is like, "Ooh,
Yeah, I
is that
think,
the"
like, I always
Mhm.
tell people, apparently some people just need to hit the wall and they'll wake up. I apparently needed to be slammed into it repetitively
Yes.
before I
I
woke
think I
up.
did. I think most
Yeah,
people do.
I do
Yeah,
too.
'cause you're so high functioning, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
able to manage and compartmentalize and do that, and so if part of you feels like, "I can do it. It's normal. No biggie," right? I'll call 'em, I'm gonna do the board meeting, kids at school, totally, can do it. I'll manage it, and I think that's the rut that eventually that catches up and you feel
Mhm.
extremely overwhelmed, extremely stressed, frustrated, resentful, angry, and all those sorts of things. So
It sounds just like addiction. It works.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then eventually, it's hard to believe we the end of this podcast, and I
Aw,
wanna be respectful of your time. Please promise me you will come back on because we have so much
so
more.
enjoyable.
absolutely. Absolutely. This was delightful. Thank you so much for the conversation and the just authenticity and the work that you guys have done on yourselves to be at this place. So,
Shirley, if people wanna follow you, if they wanna find out more about recovery consultants and the work that you do, where do they find you for that?
yeah, come on our website at recovery-consultants.com. You get to see videos about me talking about different services, about different things, press sort of thing. So that's the best place. We're also on Instagram at Recovery Consultants LLC. So come and find us.
Right? All right. We'll see you all right back here for another episode of The Real Dope. Join us every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. We cover another topic. We'll have more interesting guests. We'll have Shirley back as well. But most of all, you're going to find the support, the love, and the care you need to be dealing with the challenges of loving an addict. We'll see you right back here next week.
Bye.